certainty. But we've already done like 15 minutes on solipsism, and I think we got to move on at this point.
Okay.
But thanks, John.
All right, thanks. Nice talking to you.
You too.
Thanks. Actually, I was going to say this kind of demonstrates why it's a waste of time to talk about solipsism for very long.
You know, I mean, I agree. And I'll think more about that, and maybe John can email. You can always email tv@atheist-community.org, and maybe we'll get a chance to read them. And after the show's over, as a reminder, everybody gets together for dinner at Threadgill's at 301 West Riverside Drive. Any atheist or atheist-friendly person is welcome to come to that or any of our events. You don't have to be a member to attend. You don't have to be a solipsist to attend. And if you are, well, you know, we can talk. But we got Kel in Missoula.
Hey, man, how you doing?
Good.
I'm getting up with you, but I'll just continue on here. First, I want to thank you guys for allowing me to come out as an atheist.
There's a dial on the audio thing that's set wrong that's sending the stuff back to the guys on the phone.
Yeah. Are you getting feedback, Kel?
I can hear a lot of echoes. I can barely hear you. I can hear you guys, but it's echoing like crazy.
We'll shut up for a minute and let you talk, and hopefully it'll work out.
It just echoes. I can. All right.
Just talk without listening to yourself talk.
Again, I can just hear echoes. I can hear it's just strange. It's very strange.
Right. Then I got to drop it. I'm sorry. All right. So for the people who are calling in, there's audio problems in the studio today, and I apologize for that. It does make it difficult. I have called in when those are going on. There's a setting on the board that sometimes evidently gets overlooked, and nobody can remember exactly which one it is, and it may not even be that setting. The equipment's actually beyond our control. So when you call in, when you actually get on the air, here's some things to do. Make sure that your TV and or stream is turned down or off. When it comes time for you to present whatever it is that you're presenting, go ahead and, you know how you would normally hold a phone where you can talk and listen? Just hold the phone like this and talk and ignore whatever's coming out of the earpiece for a minute. Keep it brief. And when you see a response or when you've done saying what you've got to say, we'll talk and you can cover the mouthpiece and listen. Hopefully it'll solve some of the problems.
Yeah.
It's about all I can do. We got Luca in New York.
Hey, what's happening, guys?
Hey, how are you?
Hi.
I wanted to have a really long conversation about solipsism, if it's okay.
Why, certainly. Have you got a time machine?
Yeah.
No, kidding aside, I did have a point to make about Christianity, and I'm going to go ahead and do the thing where I cover my earpiece because I do hear a little bit of an echo.
Go for it.
So
Okay.
We'll need to interrupt me. I was thinking about the trend in history of Christianity. If we look at the average Christian today and the number of claims and commandments from the Bible that he accepts versus the ones that believe they're accepted by your average Christian 500 years ago or 1,000 years ago, it's diminished so much. I mean, however terrifying it is that 40% of people in America believe that the Earth is 6,000 years old, it's not 100%. And people used to burn witches alive, and people used to actively believe in slavery, and the number of Bible claims has been reduced a lot over time. And the number of atheists has been growing, and if you look at your average Christian family, it's much more common that the children are slightly less pious and serious about their religion than their parents, as opposed to the other way around. So as long as these trends continue, don't you think that basically we've won the battle? That, there's been an oil spill and it takes a long time to clean it up. So basically, Christianity is destined to wind down, at least in Europe and America and the civilized world.
All right, I'm going to put you on hold so that we can try and kill the audio thing. We're not hanging up.
Okay. Yeah, I think actually John Loftus addressed this once on his blog, and I think Bart Ehrman has talked about it too, that basically Christianity has been forced to sort of evolve, or it would have died a long time ago. Because if you look at, initially what the original, Catholic Church required of people, and then later after the Protestants got on the scene and everything, what was required of them. If you look at that, very few people would be willing to follow that. So I think that there's some evidence that it's had to evolve. And one of the things that you mentioned, slavery and some of the other issues, that the church has taken a different stance today than it had originally on those issues. And I use the church as sort of like this monolithic thing, which Christianity really isn't. But that's kind of another argument for Christianity as sort of an idea morphing itself to fit our changing view of how we relate to each other. And so I think that Christianity has been heavily influenced by secular morality and our secular notions of what's right and wrong. And it had to, because otherwise I think it would have died long ago.
Yeah, I mean, if we only look at the trends, not only what's actually trending now within the modern religions, the other trend is that all religions die.
Yeah.
And what tends to kill them off is their inability to be flexible. And as if you put out too rigid a pronouncement about the way the world is, and while science doesn't prove anything, when our knowledge gets to a point where your rigid declaration about how the world works is obviously wrong, your religion is going to die off or it's going to change. And what we see is that the older religions, actually, there's a little caveat here, in that some of the religions were incredibly flexible, but died off for other reasons. It's not the only thing that kills off a religion. Culture wars and clashes, and what do individual religions propose to offer to the adherents. I think that we're going to see this trend continue, and what we're going to end up with is some segment of the population is always going to believe something that everybody else would consider to be nonsense. To consider that we're going to have some segment of the population that's almost always going to be superstitious. And we see this because ritual exists outside of religion, and believing in supernatural things isn't necessarily constrained to religion. We see this in pseudoscientific beliefs and the various things that get labeled as woo. Eventually, I think you're going to kind of get. I think science and truth will always win out in the end, barring some catastrophe that eliminates them. But you'll end up with a huge section of the population who may not necessarily understand the real world at the level of the most elite with the scientific knowledge, but they're on board. They're focused on reality. They don't really have any concern or issue, and don't really believe the superstitious nonsense. And then the portion of the population that believes in the superstitious stuff will continue to decrease, but I don't think it'll ever go away. And at least until we perfect a brain that's immune from emotional pleas and logical fallacies, and then we're probably not human anymore.
Yeah.
But wouldn't you say that this introduction of this flexibility element to Christianity, and even just the fact that it's split into Catholicism and Protestants and whatnot, that in itself represents a very heavy blow to their monopoly over what people think?
Sure.
Yeah.
And if the trend continues, eventually it's going to just become so fragmented that it basically dissolves,
I think that's the case. I think that Christianity and Judaism and Scientology and Mormons and Protestants, Catholics of all stripes, that their religions will go the way of the dodo. The question that you had asked earlier was, have we won the war? And absolutely not. One of the key issues is when the rational, non-theistic members of society have gotten complacent and assumed that we've got this religion thing beaten, and tried to say, okay, let's just kind of let them have their little delusions or whatever, they've put us in a position where there's a backlash. So you get religiosity tends to do this as it climbs for a while and then drops and then climbs for a while. Well, actually, I guess maybe it would be hopefully this way.
Trending down.
Trending down overall. I would
interrupt you. I can barely hear what you. I mean, I can hear what you're saying, but I can barely understand it because of this echo issue.
Sure.
So
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and go, but before I do that, I mean, my point was this, that what validates Christian person's belief is the fact, or at least historically, would have been that everybody in the world believes the same thing as him.
I don't think that's true.
No.
I don't think that's true, and I don't think it's really ever been true.
Yeah.
I think it's been a common claim, and I'm going to let you go so you don't have to listen to the echo. I think it's been a common claim, you know, you hear this, well, everybody believes this. I don't know that I ever met a Christian while I was a Christian, it certainly doesn't apply to me, who believed or took validation from the fact that others believed, at least not explicitly.
Right.
Implicitly, when you're running with the herd, that type of implicit validation, yeah, if that's what you meant, then I'm on board with that. But by and large, to say that, you know, everybody else has believed it, so I'm going to believe it too, I don't think that represents a significant portion. I think
No,
they've been convinced by something else.
You find that argument occasionally when you've got a theist who's obviously losing an argument, and they throw that out there as like, well, everybody else believes this. Are you saying all these other people are wrong?
Yep.
You know, and that's just an argument from popularity. So,
Sorry.
anyway.
That was a redundant question, I guess. I didn't have to say yep. But
Anyway.
we'll try Kel again from Missoula.
Seconding again, I can hear you a little better, though.
Okay.
Okay.
I do want to thank you, first off, again, for helping me come out as an atheist. That's the first thing.
Okay. Great. Thank
Great.
you. We're glad.
And I've got a little story for you if you want to listen. It's kind of interesting.
Go
I
ahead.
kind of call myself a Gnostic atheist. Gnosticism being the thing that with some of the beliefs that have experiences, you know, that prove God. But I'm still an atheist. Several years ago, when my son was born, I read a story in the paper about a man who took his son to work. School actually forgot him in the car, and the son died from heat exposure. The guy let his son die. He freaked me out. So I'm lying in bed that night, totally upset and very emotional. I could not get this out of my head. I was fearing that maybe I would do this to my son somehow. I'd make some horrible mistake to my son. And as I lay there awake, I was kind of meditating. All of a sudden, I found myself in this giant castle-type, medieval-type place, and it was obvious I was the son of, quote, God. These people were 50 feet tall, dressed in wonderful raiment, all the whole 9 yards, you know, golden helmets, everything, like, you know, Vikings. So, and I asked the question, how do I be a father? How do I, you know, do my job? And it wasn't in words, but they gave me this answer. And I woke up totally relieved. It was a transcendent, wonderful experience. It was absolutely fabulous. And it changed my life, and it helped me be a better father. But here's the thing. I've been an agnostic for years. Basically, I was really an atheist, truly, until you guys, watching you guys on YouTube, made me realize I was an atheist. Even though I've had that experience, and a lot of Christians would love to have, they went before God, so to speak, I still don't believe in God. Because it could be a dream. I mean, it probably was a very fancy dream. I've had out-of-the-body experiences, the same thing. Does not prove there's a God, or an afterlife for that matter. So I kind of cheat on myself a Gnostic atheist.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
I mean that I've had experiences that most people would, you know, assume that they would, you know, they've met God or whatever, but I don't buy it.
Okay. But do you understand the difference, or do you understand what that means when you say you're Gnostic or agnostic?
Yeah. And then for years, I thought I was an agnostic, and I still am an agnostic because I just don't know. But watching you guys on YouTube made me realize that I'm really an atheist because I don't believe in God. I don't believe in it. I still don't believe in Christianity
So,
anyway.
I'm just saying, like in the last minute, you've called yourself agnostic and a Gnostic theist. So I don't know which one you are. Atheist, sorry.
Well,
yeah,
the Gnostic part is kind of tongue-in-cheek. Because not, I understand, they believe they've actually had experience which prove God to them. I had the experiences, I just don't believe it. You know, it's not rational to believe in things like that.
Gnosticism or agnosticism